John, can you just give us a talk through the decision making that led to Jim being losing his job?
Well, what we've done is we have to get prepared for next season, and there has been kind of a toxic environment that we've had with the fans and the club, and it's just been, when you get in a rut like this and the way that we've been, it's just not a good place to be. So we're taking this opportunity to get started a bit earlier than what we normally do. Most people are saying that we should have probably waited till the end of the season, but our preseason starts in 5.5 weeks, so we need to get started now and start focusing on the positives, and start looking. We've already started looking for a new manager, but start putting out all the things that are going to be good for next season and getting everybody excited and behind the club.
It was quotes today from Jim he says he felt he deserved another transfer window, another attempt to turn the team around. But from what you're saying there, you just didn't think the fans would accept that. Is that fair?
I think that's fair to say. Yeah, it's to be fair to Jim, even the window that he rebuilt in, managers never 100% rate the players from the previous manager, and they always want their own staff in. And we've been as an ownership group, we back our managers. We did 33 transactions in January, but January is not the best time to build a team or even rebuild a team. So to be fair to Jim, I understand what his argument is there. We should look at having 2 or more windows to actually build your squad up, so it's truly your squad. In this case, though, I think it was just too far gone. 10 losses in a row. The fans truly turned on Jim, and even if Jim came out of the gates next year flying, I think he'd be under the gun constantly. And we want our manager to manage kind of without fear. We want him to be as successful as possible, and I'm not sure that we would have gotten that if we had stayed with Jim.
How far down the line are you in terms of then looking to appoint a successor? I mean, I take it you're still at the very early process?
We're in the very early stages, yeah. We had, unfortunately, before Jim was removed, we had several applicants. People smell blood in the water, and they start putting applications in. Over the past 48 hours, we've been inundated, just like we were last time, with applications, notes of interest, things of that nature. We're taking all that into consideration. This week we had a long meeting yesterday with our executive staff going through. I mean, we're getting some very inexperienced managers and some very, very experienced managers and everything in between. And we're going to take a hard look at that and look and see how it fits what we're trying to do for next season and beyond, actually.
The statement you put a couple of weeks ago sort of laid out the process that you chose to appoint Jim and the criteria that you're looking for. Will that criteria still be the same this time? It's like the 300 games requirement?
It'll be similar. We've looked at that and we're modifying it again, but I think that the basis will probably still be there, or it is still there. We have to have a basis, otherwise how would we know who we're looking at? Anybody and their brother could come out of the woodwork. But it is just a basis. There's a lot more work that goes into it beyond that. We speak with lots of people within football, get their opinions, and we'll start whittling down the applicants from that point on. We're looking for somebody that can take us out of the championship and then continue to be successful in the premiership. So it's not an easy task. You're really looking at 2 totally different types of football to do that. But we think that, with our processes, we thought we got it right with Jim. And everybody that we talked to thought we got it right with Jim. So it's not an exact science. And maybe Jim does deserve another window and may have done better within that second window. We're not going to know that. But, it's not an exact science. But everybody that we had around us and the people that we've spoken to, and even the people that sent me letters saying they didn't want Billy Dodds, all for the majority thought that Jim was the right appointment.
In terms of, just go back to the criteria you had before, it was as if you wanted an experienced manager. There's been lots of names bandied about in the press today, things like Charlie Adam. Is that something you would consider a player manager type role, or do you need to have somebody who's got a proven track record, or somebody of Charlie's standing that might be able to open doors in terms of his contacts down south? Does that appeal?
Well, I'm not. First of all, I'm not sure that Charlie's still not a player. I'm not sure that we would look at a player manager role. I think that the role, especially at Dundee Football Club, has too much to do to be a player manager. So I would mark that out. We currently have, like right now, Kenny Miller is top of the table to become the next manager. He hasn't even knocked on my door. So I'm not sure where the people are getting their information. I'm not sure Kenny has any inclination of putting his name forward or not. I don't know. If he does, we'll certainly talk to him out of respect and make sure that, to find out where he is in his career and what he wants to do. Within our criteria, if we brought a younger manager on, we would desperately want to make sure that he has somebody next to him that has a lot of experience, so that could potentially offset what we're trying to do with the 300 games. Or otherwise, it has to be an experienced manager that we think can get us the points that we need. Everybody talks about the criteria. It literally is just the starting point. We have to go and do all of the research behind. We talk to loads of people to find out more about this person. If we ever find out that there's some negatives that are behind the scenes, there's drinking issues or there's this or that, certainly take that into consideration. But in this case, that wasn't the case when we hired Jim.
I think this is looking for your fifth manager since you guys came in to take over the club. Yeah,
John Brown, he was the manager when we showed up. Then Paul, Neil, and so this will be 5.
So I take it
we didn't hire John. Really like John, but we didn't hire John.
I take it that from your point of view that's too much of a turnover in quite a short period of time, and you're looking for somebody who's going to bring stability to the club, because that's, I suppose, the only way that you get the sort of success you're looking for.
Yeah, I talked about this before. I want, from an ownership group, we try to portray that we are very stable. Sometimes people don't believe it, but we are very stable. We have plans in place. Our academy is going from strength to strength. We're going into the new regional performance center as our training facility for them. Commercial departments going from strength to strength. Everything's going from strength to strength. We're upset at the fact that we haven't had a manager that has been able to maintain this. I think that we'd be very patient with the manager if we had shorter periods of failure, because there are things that you have to work through. But unfortunately, in each case, we had these long patches that we were very unsuccessful, and that really weighs on everybody. It weighs on the fans, weighs on us, weighs on the staff. And that's when I talk about being a negative environment around here. If we were going through patches where we had 2 or 3 losses and then we bounced back with a win or some strong draws and things of that nature, we'd probably be a lot more patient with the manager. And we desperately want somebody to be here several years in a row.
You were back seeing Tim recently.
Yep.
I know you said in your statement a couple of weeks ago that the ownership group remained fully committed to the club. I take it that position hasn't changed. You want to turn this situation around? Yeah,
the situation hasn't changed at all. I mean, that's why I brought up the other pieces of the football department, or outside of the football department. We're spending a little bit more money on our training facilities for the kids. We want that to happen. It doesn't matter what league we're in. That's going to happen. We will make some changes around the organization as we kind of do every year. We take a look and reassess. But yeah, we're fully committed. We have plans in place. We're going to continue with those plans, and hopefully when we pick the next manager, they're here for a hell of a lot longer than the last 3.
In terms of your search for a new manager, would having the experience of the Scottish Championship being a requirement, or do you see someone from overseas coming?
Well, no, they have to, in my opinion, we have to have somebody who knows the Scotch game. The Scotch game is unique in its own right, and we don't have time really to get somebody up to speed on the Scotch game. So they have to know the Scotch game. They have to have been involved in the Scotch game of some sort. Have to be watching, have to be paying attention to the Scotch game. I don't really care where the manager comes from, as long as they are familiar with the game and what we need to do. They don't necessarily have to have championship experience. But like I said, we have to have the experience to get us out of where we're going, out of the league, which we barely got out of last time. Literally a fingertip save by Kyle Etherin got us into the league. So, it's something that it's going to be the best man for the job, but the best man has to have an understanding of Scottish football.
You touched on the environment and the feeling under Jim McIntyre. Is this the lowest feeling that there's been around the club under McIntyre in your time here?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I can't stand the injustices that I feel that the club has been dealt a few times, but that is not why we are where we are. I felt gutted that the players against Celtic really followed the game plan. They did everything that they were supposed to do. And for some reason, 6 minutes on the board goes up and actually score in the 7th minute. You feel gutted for the players when you do things like that. I'm surprised I haven't been cited because I have polite conversations with the refereeing contingent. But, I think for a continued low, it's been the lowest that it's been. Just every day is, trying to come in, trying to keep everybody up, trying to keep people moving forward. It's really hard to do. And then you think, all right, we've got everybody up. We're very, very happy for the next game to be here. And then if you get kicked in the teeth again, it's hard to keep everybody going. Like I said, if you break that up with time, the best thing after a loss is having a next game and trying to eradicate what has happened and get back on the front foot. And if you just don't get back on the front foot, it's very difficult.
And how do you see the Dundee job as kind of like an application in terms of like how attractive it is to some potential managers? I mean, do you think the person who comes in will have to like heal wounds as such?
I don't know if I'm not exactly sure what you mean.
In terms of kind of like what's happened with the relegation, and you're talking about the feeling under McIntyre being very low.
Yeah.
Whoever comes in, are they going to have a huge challenge to lift spirits?
Well, I think it's one of the reasons why we made the change even before the end of this season. That's what our goal is now, is to lift the spirits and start moving forward. An appointment of new manager, the appointment of players, the excitement of an upcoming season, I think will all kind of dissipate those feelings over time, and we will get a new vigor and new excitement for next season. So I think we'll have that in place prior to going into the first match. Well, at least I hope we have that in place prior to the first match. But we don't have a lot of time to make that happen because, like I said, 5.5 weeks, we're back in preseason, and only 2 or 3 weeks after that we have our first cup match. So, and then they come thick and fast at that point in time. And hopefully, at that point in time, everybody's excited about the signings that we've had, the managers that we have, the beer festival that we're going to have. We're going to try everything to do to get everybody happy and back on side.
So, because you said you're inundated with applications and notes of interest, could you put a figure on that at all?
Well, I can tell you right now, from the time that we've sat here, I've had 1, 2, 3, 4. What time did we start? I've had 7 applications since we've sat here, and I would say within the first 48 hours we've had over 100, and prior to this weekend we had over 50. And that's just not proper applications. And it's interesting seeing some of the applications coming through and the different ways they're trying to attract attention. Some of them are just notes of interest. Would you be interested in this? Would you be interested in that? But some of them are full-on 5-page dossiers to say this is what I've done and here's who I am. I have to admit, a lot of them none of us have heard of.
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean they're not fine managers in their own right, but they are from overseas and things of that nature that they just have never been on our radar. I mean, for the most part, the ones that know the Scottish game, very few of them actually surprise us when they come out of the woodworks. There are a handful that do surprise us every time, but there's very few that we're not aware of going forward. And like I said, that's just understanding the game and have been in the game.
And just to confirm, is Charlie Adam, is his name amongst that in any sort of...
Charlie's name hasn't been brought up at all.
Officially,
Like I said, Kenny Miller's name has not been brought up at all. I think that's more you guys talking about this than us guys talking about this. If Charlie was interested, we'd certainly talk to Charlie. You know, it's one of the things, even when we're down at Crystal Palace and we did the testimonial for Julian, I think that, I still see him as a player. And if he would ever want to come and play for us, we'd certainly have that conversation.
Would somebody of his, standing, the pool that he might have, contacts he might have, would that make him a strong candidate?
As far as a player or manager?
Both, I suppose. If he was to put his name in, you say you don't think a player manager is acceptable, but if he came in and felt strong enough that he could do it, would it be something?
I think that would be, we'd look at it, but I think it'd be very risky. Once again, you'd have to look at what would be around him, what kind of backroom staff that he'd put together. But I don't know that he even wants to do that. He has not even, I have no clue if that's, I don't know if he wants to go into management. So I don't know.
Can I just ask, John, do you have like a time frame or a deadline where you want a manager by?
We don't have a time frame or a deadline. We do want to make sure that we get this done in relatively short order, but make sure we're very thorough with it. We are going to be collecting information and organizing information throughout this week. Then we'll start early next week actually making contact and talking to some of the candidates and starting to filter it down. If we can get it done in the next 2 to 3 weeks, I'd be quite happy with that, but it's not going to be done by the end of this week. But we want to give the new manager the best opportunity to build his team going into the preseason. I would like it to all be done prior to that, but most likely it won't be done prior to that.
When you appointed Jim, you talked about the inexperience that was there, or the lack of opportunities that were there when Paul Hartley was about, so you put a succession plan into place with a list of managers, a long list of managers instead. Is that something that you still have, this long list of managers?
Yeah, we do. We have, I was going to show it to you, but with modern technology, you probably actually zoom in and pick it out. Yes, we have a list of managers that we update from time to time. And then right now that is being populated with other managers. All the ones that we had on the list have noted interest that we've had on the list prior to, and then we've added some to that. In fact, we've added quite a few to that list. I think the list itself currently sits at about 27, 28, or maybe more since I've been sat in here, but that's the quasi short list at the moment that meet parts of the criteria that are most important to us.
Some of the criteria you said was part of the list was 10 years experience in management, experience in the Scottish game. It was important that points per game played and win percentages and things for managers. Is that still the main criteria, or is there other things that have been added to that?
No, there's always more to it. That's just the basis. And everybody thinks that's the only thing we look at. It is truly only the basis of how we take 100 managers and put them into how do we sift through that. So that is the basis of it. The 10 years, the 300 games gives you about 10 years experience. We think that if a team comes in, if we decide to go with a younger manager, if they have a senior member of staff that has had that experience, we would look at that. That's something that we didn't do during Jim's time. So we would look at that. So if we had a younger manager, we might look at that as long as they had a senior number two, if you will, that has been there, done that. so they're not making the same mistakes, all the learning mistakes. Or somebody to say, look, I've already done that, don't go down that path, let's go down this path, here's why. That would be important to us. The win percentages are important to us. It's win percentages based on the Scottish League or the equivalent, or as close to the equivalent as we can get, depending on where they're at. We do certainly take a look at that. We watch games that these people have managed. We have other people watch games and tell us what they think, and go from there. And then we look at how they recruit. That's a big thing. Is how do you recruit? Who are the players that you'd bring in, and where do you get them from? What is your sphere of influence? We talked about Charlie Adam. He knows a lot of players, but would they come to Dundee? I don't know. These are the things. It's not as simple as these 5 criteria points. And then you go into the craft knowledge of the manager, and what he's done in the past, what has he succeeded, and what demons, if any, are out there that can we deal with those, or do we want to deal with those? And here at Dundee, we've dealt with our fair share of demons, of things that we, kept people out of jail, have done all kinds of things. It's been interesting.
So from what you're saying there, is there a possibility of a director of football, sporting director, something like that type of role coming to Dundee? Well,
I don't know. I mean, the thing is, the people that are banded about, we talk to all the time. I'm not sure that they'd want to put their head above the parapet. They're quite happy for me to take all the bullets, because we do talk to these people. And whether or not we have one director of football, if we brought somebody in to help out a young manager, like I tried to do with Neil. Even with Paul, I was speaking to Craig Brown about trying to help Paul out doing things, just advice, things of that nature. I think that, that might be more appropriate than having a director of football, because regardless, although we have an executive that manages the stuff, I appoint that person at the end of the day. So if they're not happy with the director of football, I'm still the one that's appointed that person. So I think that we don't have a director of football in mind at this moment in time, because, like I said, we have several people that we talk to that have been on these lists. There's a couple that aren't, but there's quite a few of them that we talk to and get advice from, and we'd continue to do that.
You mentioned about listening to what fans say and fans' input, which is obviously very credible for yourself to take that on board with the business runnings that are happening. They had an input into the decision you said about Jim because they turned against them. They also had an input at the start of Jim's tenure when they said they didn't want Billy Dodds. Is there sometimes a place where maybe the fan input, because they're thinking from the heart rather than the business input, might be influential?
No, yeah, yes and no. I mean, when it was as fervent as it was with Billy Dodds, you really take note of that. A lot of times in these situations, you get form letters, and everybody signs the same letter, and they send it to you. Literally every letter that I got was written from the heart, and they had, it wasn't an outcry. It was individual outcries in the multiples. So you definitely take that on board. We do things, the business has to run the way the business has to run. Sometimes fans don't agree with us when it comes to ticket pricing and things of that nature, but that's the only way we keep the doors open. So we'll make the best decision for the football club, although it might not be the popular decision. And, that's what I'll do. If I take criticism for that, I'm quite happy to take criticism for that, because I know that what I'm doing is best for the football club. And I think everybody in this building does it the same way. They make decisions that are best for the football club. Yes, we want the fans to have a good time. We want them to have their say. But, some things we absolutely have to deal with, and it's sometimes unpopular, but otherwise, it would be, the doors would not stay open if that was the case in some instances.
And the new manager, when they do come in, are they likely to have a reasonable budget to keep them going, to get them out of this championship? It's one of the most difficult leagues to get out of.
Yeah, our commitment's not going to change. We want to get out of the league. and get back into the Premiership. So yeah, he'll have a reasonable budget. We've looked at budgets that we had in the past. We looked at budgets that we've had in the relatively near future or recent past. But yeah, we're going to try to give the manager a budget that will make him successful, but within reason. We're not going to go out and, although it may appear that we do that anyway, but we're not going to go out and absolutely break the bank. We are going to be reasonable, and we think that the manager that comes in within a reasonable budget should be able to win the league.
As you've kind of touched on there, it is a difficult week, but you're saying that you're expecting the manager to be able to go and compete at the top and win the league. Is there a requirement that they have to win the league first time around, or is it a case of building stepping stones?
Well, I think that ideally we'd like them to win the league first time out. But like we talked about before, if we're successful and but not 100% successful to get in the league, I think that we would stick with the manager and continue on to try to get into the league next year. Lots of things can happen in football. It's not a guarantee. I could spend millions and millions on the team next year. It doesn't guarantee that we're going to win the league. So there's a lot that can happen, but we'll give a platform for the manager and the players to be successful. And if they are, then great. If not, we'll see what we can do to help solidify that. But ideally, we'll have a manager in situ that can get us up first time. If not, if it's a good go, he'll have a second shot at it, and go from there.
You've also spoken about the youth as well. Do you see that as being quite a big part of Dundee going forward, even into as early as next season, or do you see it with being such a difficult week, you're going to need to build an experienced group of players to try and get you out of it and slowly put these youngsters into the squad?
Well, I think you're going to see a bit of both. We have, coming through right now, when we first took over, we have this long-term plan with our youth. I think you're going to see some young boys on the bench this Saturday. Hopefully they get some playing time, we'll see. But these are boys that are now signed professional contracts with us. We're very proud of that. They are very, very good players, one of which captains the under-18s and he captains the reserves. So, that's our first group of players that actually came through since we've had the organization, if that makes sense. It's the first, or the youngest group that we had when they came in. So I think that what we'll do is we'll have a group that is built to get out of the championship, but also leaning towards a group that you don't have to completely rebuild to be successful in the Premiership, if that makes sense. It's not a good answer, I know, but it's a hybrid of what you're saying. We'll have experience around all of the youth and how often we use the youth. I would love for us to be able to have a scenario where the manager is not fearful of his position and is not fearful of having a little bit of a run of losses, so they would play the youth a little bit more. So I would like to go with a philosophy that we do play a lot more youth, but the fans would have to get back behind them as well, because with youth comes uncertainty, and sometimes you can have a really great game, and then the next game it could be quite poor, and you just have to be able to sit behind them and get behind them, thick or thin, and help that player along.